so many steps.
So many steps. Yeah.
And I don't know what made me decide to try to do it this way. But it's a technique that I've done already for sketching, like before I do a watercolor.
Yeah.
Like take my photo, grid it, take my watercolor paper and do a little bit of a grid. So it was a concept that I was already familiar with. And because my hooking is, I call my hooking loosey-goosey. Like I made this 3D chicken at our guild meeting this past year. He's really cute.
You have to show us that.
I'll bring him downstairs for tomorrow. Okay. So he's made from 2 log cabin quilt squares, but they're hooked. But for me to hook all those straight, even lines to make all those oh please, oh my God. Because at first I was like, I'm going to make a whole flock of birds. This is going to be the coolest thing, because you could make one that looks like bluebird colors. I was making a whole flock of birds. Well, then I did the hooking and I'm like, I'm not sure how many of these birds I'm making. And then I did the put them together and sew them together. I'm like, yeah, I'm not making any more birds. This is it. The chicken is it. So I'm just a more loosey-goosey, like I got to close my door here a second because today is mowing day in our community.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
No.
Oh, if you guys don't hear it, then I'll let the door open. So I tend to, like, my drawing doesn't have to be perfect. And I find that it changes between the sketch and what I put on the linen a little bit. And I'm usually fine with that. Yeah. But like, I don't need my lines to be all in the most perfect places. Using the grid, it's close enough.
Okay, I admire that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like everybody's going to find their own best way to do it. Like, I know that what I'm going to do with this design that I think I'm just about finished with is the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it with Sharpie. And then I'm going to trace it onto the linen.
Yep.
But I think there are pros and cons to all of these methods. And I think the way you're doing it is working for you. And like I said, I've done a couple of pieces that way. And there is something liberating about drawing right onto the foundation. There's something sort of brave and liberating about
There's that part of me though that wants I want a track record. Like I want to be able to replicate it. And if I draw it right on the linen, I'm worried I won't have the basis of.
Right.
But then I end up doing the same thing, JC. I end up I draw it on there and then I end up varying from it. Like I end up changing the shape or the angle of something. And then I don't truly have a track record anyway. So.
Right. It's like all of my production patterns are on paper and they're filed alphabetically because they're production patterns. But if it's an art piece, then you're never going to make it again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I got to, because I used to do that. And I have all of my little pieces rolled up and everything. But am I really going to ever do those again?
Good point.
For me personally, it would be no. And if I wanted to go back to that same subject matter or motif or whatever, I think I would want to make it different anyway, in some way.
I guess for me, I'm still at that. I don't know what I'm aspiring to yet.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't know that either.
No, but I think I'm wanting, on some level, I'm wanting to keep some of the patterns because I may end up, I hope to teach, at least punch needle, teach that. And then I may end up wanting to be able to have some maybe digital patterns to just sell, but I haven't, I don't want, I'm too old to get into like the whole crazy, listen to Beth. She's getting out of it. If she's getting out of it, do I really want to get into it? Like, but I know that like I want to have patterns that are like mine, that I can say these are mine, and this is a good one I've worked over enough that you guys can do it, as students. So
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And often students, like I've taught both ways. I've taught beginners in very small groups where they wanted to design their own pattern. And but often I find with like brand new beginners, it is nice to have a pattern because it removes that whole piece of it. And then all they have to focus on is learning to pull loops and their technique.
right. Which the first time I took like a punch needle, like I said, was my intro. The teacher came with stencils and we just chose a stencil and that's what we did, you know?
Yeah.
You know that, but back to Stacy's point, like I don't use a sketchbook an awful lot, to be honest. Like I might do a rough thing or about 12 and then I just kind of run with it. And I tend to draw right on my linen, sometimes using red dot. But now that those pieces are gone out of my house, I kind of wish I had the patterns. I kind of wish I had those sketches so I could remember.
Yeah.
Along with some notes, right? Like use this wool, this worked, this didn't work. Because you know, you forget.
Now that's something I've seen some of Jean's notebooks.
Yeah.
Like I'm not really much of a documenter, but I
she's
feel
a
like
crazy
Jean
documenter.
is a documenter extraordinaire.
Well, see, and that's because I've been accused of copying other people's work before, and it's also because other people have lifted my work before. And if you have a drawing with a date on it, an initial.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, as I caught on to that notion really quickly, through social media somehow when I first started doing this stuff, that people were marking their work, not only in their subject matter, but like signing their work. And I was like, I gotta do this because
You should.
Something's going on here if all these people, and now since really being part of this community, I've learned like you've got to. I think you're right, Jean.
Yeah. And I started doing like a little page in my journal where I kind of, although I didn't do it today for this, but when I started it, when I finished it, what the size was, what materials I used, and then what was my inspiration or my why.
You guys are good.
And then what were the challenges and learning from it, if anything? Because I started doing this because I felt like maybe I would be less likely to get lost in the weeds, which I think is what happens with me. I lose my point of view sometimes. And I thought maybe doing this would help me.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, the way I do it, I mean, I think I have, first of all, where is everybody on their sketching? Because we have plenty of time.
I'm trying to draw out number 1 draft.
Okay.
I did a sketch. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nancy.
I did. Well, I'm busy here, like weaving, like show you, just warping this in, right?
Oh, that is
Nice.
amazing.
That's silk. So I was thinking, oh man, okay, again, my typical thing. I have this much of that color, like the gal's awake for 10 days. Otherwise, now I'm thinking, why didn't I buy 3 of these? Because I've got a gazillion other pinks. So then I thought, okay, I don't have a lot. What am I going to do with what I have? So I went downstairs into my old embroidery stuff and I thought, I mean, this is going to be my, like in weaving terms, warp. So one way, you know, of the grid up and down. And then I'm going to use embroidery thread for the weft going crosswise, right? And then I will insert some of this pink and maybe some other colors. But this will definitely be part of the absolutely a big piece, of the piece. And then this is what I'm going to.
I'm gonna spotlight you.
I thought I better measure. So this is, what is this? 4 by 7, I believe.
Oh, cute.
Oh, that's great.
I love that.
Thanks. So that's Uber. I've done this piece before. I've sold it to, you know, I mean, it's been out there and this is my new thing, right? And I've been reading a lot of Kaczynski's work. Kaczynski's an artist and he's all about the spiritual thing. He talks about shapes. And the triangle is about like the aspiration, like in his, you know, being an artist, he says, great art will pull you right up to the very top of the triangle. But to me, you know, a good day, whatever it might be, right? And then if things aren't going so great, you kind of slide back down. But to me, this is being grounded down here, right? So ideally, you got it all going on.
I love it.
Talk about the grounding exercises. So this is the piece, and I'm going to hook it, obviously sideways, right? On here. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be different from hooking, but it will be hooking because I've done weaving forever. And what I found frustrating was you can't tell a story. At least I can't. But this, like using this as the foundation, helps me take it a step in a little different direction, I guess. Marrying the two, let's say that.
I love it. I can't wait to see it. It's just so exciting because it came up recently in the studio peeps and I have an ongoing conversation on Instagram messaging, and somebody did bring up this idea. Somebody else was making their own foundation, and I was immediately intrigued, but I thought, oh, I'm going to put that in the back of my mind. I'm probably not going to get to see anybody do that anytime soon.
I saw someone on Instagram doing this, and her name is totally slipping my mind. Something Luna is her handle.
Okay.
She's like Argentinian or Chilean, I think, but she lives in the States. And she does punch needle, but she does a lot of her stuff with these big eyes. Have you seen those? And she recently was, I think, it seemed as though she had been traveling and she didn't have all of her background materials with her, but she had access to materials. So she created her own background material or fabric.
Yeah, like you just, and that, you know,
Cool.
my whole thing back in the 60s and 70s and 80s was all experimental work with my weaving. Like the guild I was disowned from the Weavers Guild because I was weaving with mylar, with hull, with ribbons, with whatever. So I made big kind of installation pieces and then real installations. So I've come back and I'm loving rug hooking. But right now I just have to get creative, and
yeah,
this is, yay, I've got my mojo back, Beth, thank you.
I feel like getting disowned from a guild can be a positive.
Like a badge of honor.
It can be a positive if the guild is not accepting of new and different ideas.
Yeah,
some guilds are and some aren't, so it just depends on.
You're a little bit threatened, right?
Yeah,
you're a bit threatened, but yeah, so this is the perfect opportunity for me to.
So does anybody else have anything they want to show and tell, or are you still want to just keep working?
Jean, how's your series coming?
Oh, well, we're working on the first one.
All right.
Oh, let me spoil you.
Wow. Sure.
I love it.
My goodness.
Well, it's happening. I'm not sure. The words, to begin with, to do them that small is going to be a challenge. Writing that small. They're also not on the straight, which is what I wanted them. And I also was thinking that I want them to kind of blend with the background. Like maybe they'd be a lighter color or a darker color, but they would be there, but they wouldn't stick out as much as these, which are bright lime green leaves and stuff, my favorite color.
Yes.
And this is over here is the immature version of this. And I just drew the roots too long, stems too long, so they'll be cut off.
Wow.
Anyway,
I was going to say, I like the idea. I like the idea of the words being kind of faded in to the background, just kind of gently there.
Yeah, I could put the real name, which is Solomon Seal, but the problem is a lot of people call plants different names.
Right. So, I like this because now I did recognize it as Solomon Seal because I have a bunch of it here, and I even papered my bathroom in Solomon Seal.
Hey.
But I think there's something about having the Latin. It makes it feel so much more like a botanical series to me.
Yeah, good point. It's lovely. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great picture.
It'll work.
And in terms of your writing, you know, with your back meadow, backyard meadow, this is
Well,
great.
this will be in the shade because Solomon seal grows in the shade and I'm a realist if nothing else.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I can show you where it came from, which was a picture. There's a whole bunch of them here. This was a nature journal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh,
It's
my
in there
God.
with everything. Only problem was I didn't have the right color for the violet, so I got that weird funky color, but hey.
Oh my God.
Is that
They-
watercolor, Jean?
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And this is, I was thinking of putting fiddleheads in with it because they're in the shade too. See,
Yeah.
this is where the
Mhm.
Solomon seal one came from. But I
Wow.
think
Those are-
just one plant per piece is enough.
Look at your drawing.
No kidding.
I know, it's
Watercolor.
fantastic.
Wow.
I just sit there in my backyard and go, that's pretty.
Well, my
Jeez.
brother-in-law says I should give up rug hooking and take up nature journaling and art.
Yeah.
I mean, why not
It's
both?
not fiber.
Yeah, why not
Do
both
both.
anyway? You don't have to pick.
Yeah, there's something about fiber, right?
There
But-
is. I love it.
I mean, I think what your nature journals are demonstrating is something that we got really, really lectured on Get Hooked at Sea with Susan Feller. And
Oh,
that was observation. Like you can
Mhm.
see in the detail of Jean's watercolors there, that
mhm.
there's some serious observation
Oh.
going on. That's not a passing glance.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. Well put. Well put. Yeah.
Okay, so next step, do I just put her on backing however I want?
Sure, if you think
How
you're
do you
ready
do
for
that? How do you do that, Jean? Do you use like red dot or do you just, you've got you drew those yourself, so you're just gonna draw them? Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna use red dot. Okay.
Hooker's
Wait,
friend.
where's red? I've never seen red dot before.
Okay, I'm gonna spotlight Jean so you can see it.
Oh, it's like almost like an interfacing kind of
So
stuff.
transfer.
Okay.
It is. It's
Yeah.
interfacing with red dots on it.
And what do
Yeah.
you put it on the linen and then iron it on or something? What do you?
No, I put it over the drawing and I trace it in a soft pencil, which would be 2B usually for me or higher,
Oh,
or an HB will even work.
right.
And then I put it on the backing and I trace the drawing again, only with Sharpie.
And it
Permanent
goes through
Sharpie.
that stuff.
There it goes through this.
Yeah. Great.
Yep.
Lovely.
And I can take it off and if I'm not happy with it, trace it a third time.
Hey.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, sometimes it doesn't transfer through as dark as you would like it. So you can just do it again. I tend to use red dot for like more intricate things.
Mhm.
And then for more basic things, I just do straight up tracing through the linen. And some fabrics are easier to trace straight through than others. Like I find that linen is not too hard to trace through and rug warp isn't too hard to trace through. Monk's cloth, I may need to use either like my drafting table, which is glass and has light coming up underneath
Yeah.
of it, or an actual light box.
Or with monk's cloth, I put it on a window sometimes. The only
Yeah.
problem is you have to tape it really well because it hangs.
Yeah.
Monk's cloth is a pain to trace along the
Yeah.
gullies.
Yeah. So again, it's like anything else. There's a whole lot of different ways to do this. What I'm going to end up doing is I draw so for my piece is 16 by 16. So I'm going to draw on the grain a 16 by 16 square. And then assuming I can see this, which is, I might run upstairs and get my light box. Then I pin the corners. So I don't know if you can see, hang on, I'll just spotlight this. And I won't talk about the design just yet. I'm just telling you what. So what I do is I pin the corners. And then sometimes if it's a really big piece here too, the linen on top of it so that I know that it's lined up perfectly with the square, you know. and then I do my tracing, or if I'm doing, now the nice thing about Red Dot, right, is that Red Dot has that grid of red dots on it, which also will help you line up and pin or whatever, you know, whatever
Yeah,
you're doing.
super handy for that.
Yeah. So that's a handy thing. Does anybody else have anything to share?
I do. I don't know if this is going to show up because my pencil's kind of light. My
Okay.
green lines.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So this is milkweed pods. You know,
Nice.
in the fall, when they're getting their little, the little seeds are coming out, and I have some drawn in, but they aren't showing up. I think my light is, there we go. If I tilt it this way better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to have a few of the seeds floating out in the air. And this green is just my grid that I'm going to use for drawing it onto my linen once I have my linen gridded.
Yeah. Nice.
Grid, great idea. That is really beautiful.
I love milkweed. I like
So
seeing
there's the pods, the shapes of the pods are just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Like one shape is just as cool as the very next, totally different. Oh yeah, there's something about the shape of milkweed pods.
It's neat. I mean, and for whatever reason, last year, I don't usually see it, but last year our meadow out here has quite a bit of it, and the monarch butterflies were all over it. We had more than I've seen in years. I was very encouraged. So yeah, neat. Okay, well, I guess I'll show you guys what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Let's see. So what I ended up doing, I think, so what I had been talking about, Stacy, toward the end of this was that I don't know if you can see it. I couldn't figure out how to get the birds in it and have them look the way I wanted them to look. So then I just went completely outside the box. You can kind of see the landscape here. This is the road in front of me. This is the White Mountains that I talked about. It'll have the snow on the peaks. And then this is kind of like the side of the road with the trees and all of that. And so what I did to kind of bring the bird into it, and I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm going with it, is I made it so that it looked like the birds were super close to me and coming in for a landing.
Yeah.
So I just took like their interior wings, the way I would see them if they were landing directly in front of me. So that's what I'm going to try to make work here. And we'll see what happens. But, you know, it's kind of metaphorical too, because I kind of feel like, you know, some of those words I chose were really about, like, you know, homecoming and redemption and bringing something in for a landing. So that's sort of what this is going to be about. So my next step is going to be, what I do is I'm just going to go over it, you know, with my black Sharpie, and then I'll be ready to draw the 16 by 16 square on the grain on my linen, which I think you know how to do, but I'll do it again anyway. I have seen that done in a lot of ways that I think are more complicated than it has to be. So I usually do demonstrate it, but I think you've all seen it before. But I see some really, really complex ways of people putting their straight lines on the grain, and I just think, wow, that's going to work, but that's harder than you got to make it.
All of my Sharpies are dying.
Rubber can kill Sharpies really fast.
Oh
doesn't it?
God.
I buy them in bulk.
Yeah, I did at one point, and I think I've gone through all of them. So now I'm at that. So this isn't very vibrant. It's going to be multicolored. Ugh.
I'm already changing it.
Yeah. The name of the game, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, mm.
Well, it's like I thought this design was going to be really simple until I decided to put these wings in here like this. And since I want them to be the underside of Falcon's wings, they're going to be a little complicated. Like, I'm not going to draw all that detail in them, but Falcon wings are like multiple, you know, shades of brown. There's white in there.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten to the color part of this.
Right. Well, I thought we could maybe, you know, if we all get our designs done, we could start to talk a little bit about what colors we think we might use.
Right.
Because I feel like if we start in on the alternative techniques today, it's going to be a little rushed.
I seem to have a needy dog at my knees here. Hi.
I had to put my dogs upstairs. My dogs are definitely needy.
I'm sorry. Not right now. Sorry, talking to my dog.
Mom. You love them more than you love me.
That's the thing about dogs, right? Like my cat is asleep on the couch under a blanket,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll just stay there this whole time.
Yep. This guy's pretty good usually, but then he reaches a point where he's like, I need to know you still care about me.
Right.
And I'd preferably like to go outside, but you don't seem to be moving in that direction. And I have a sick teenager on the couch right now too. So
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah. Well, I don't know though. She's getting out of MCAS, which is like the standardized testing that goes on.
Yeah.
So she's missing that right now. So I don't know if she thinks it's so bad. She feels
Those
better.
are tedious. I always, my kids were never fans of those.
No.
No, I was a teacher, I can tell you. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
They measure such a small snapshot and
they don't really matter.
They're way too object, like they're not subjective. They don't at all reflect where the kid's at and what the kid's doing or capable of.
Well, and it's ultimately right now more, I find that they're more of a progress report for the school and
for the government funding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about student. That doesn't, the only one that matters in that regard is, I think, once they're into high school. And she's 8th grade right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a few teachers that would walk up and down the aisles and kind of give the kid a nudge.
Well, now they do it. Yeah, it's all on computer.
Oh, yeah, it'd be different now. That's right.
Yeah, everything is done. The essay writing, all of it's done on a computer now.
Well, I was teaching.
Joking, they don't get to spend like that 15-20 minutes going over how to fill in the circle completely.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
And,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
writing out their names. And the big funny thing that happened in our school is, so the middle school, all 3 grades, 6, 7, and 8 all have to do it. And they were all going to do the first round of testing on the same day, but the Wi-Fi in the building couldn't handle it.
Wow.
The Wi-Fi wasn't strong enough in some parts of these, school buildings are often these concrete structures.
Yeah.
So the Wi-Fi wasn't working very consistently in some parts. So they had to break it down into 3 different, multiple days, basically. So I feel for the teachers, because it's now like even more disruptive to their whole regular plan. Hi, you need to go lie down. Can you go lie down? You go lie down. He likes to come under my desk because that's where I keep all my wool scraps.
Oh, so it's like
He likes to sniff it out. Like, is there something down there? What's in there? Do this again.
So then I also do this thing with my patterns, which is wholly unnecessary. After I've gone over them with Sharpie, sometimes I'll go erase some of the stray pencil, which I don't even know why I do it. It feels like
you and I are like made from the same cloth, because that's
why do we do this?
I don't know. I was going to do the same thing. I'm actually about to like draw mine again because I put in accent lines that I don't want theirs.
I don't know why I do this.
I don't know. Because it's not like you're going to trace that onto the linen.
It doesn't matter one bit. I mean, I did make really clean for the ones that I had, reproduced in PDF for my book. Those are very clean. But for this is for me. There's no reason that I need to be silly with this like that. Oh my goodness.
All right. I think I have mine drawn, but it's all in multiple colors because my Sharpie kept dying.
That's okay. Do you want to do show and tell?
I can show you. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think it captures what I want. The buildings. So the big thing for me is I was going with that idea about how you can be kind of accurate, but it doesn't have to be exactly accurate. So my cabin is like up on a slope. We have a right of way down to the beach, and it doesn't face the water like it's shown here, so no one would know.
Right.
Oh,
that's nice.
I
Cool.
wanted to capture how there are so many tall pines, and then there be the building, which is relatively accurate. But normally it's turned the other way. But I'm going to build in like some sort of greens, and then this is the lake, and this captures actually a Shaker Cove and Point, which is right across from us, and then just the mountains. And then so I'm just trying to it's more that I want to capture the height of the trees. I actually, in my sketches in my book, I even had the house more miniature. So I may rework to be less realistic than this, to have the house be realistic, but have it be even more miniature. So I'm debating that right now.
I think you have definitely captured that towering trees feel.
Yeah, which I wanted to. And I hope to try and in this, I got to figure out if I like the ratio of all this, because right now it's a little bit too much lake for me. Because we face it's amazing sunsets. So I would like to capture some of that light coming through the trees somehow. So I need to change these ratios, I think. There's too much lake right now as I look at it on the screen. So I may scale this down to a tinier so that it looks almost like fairy book size,
Yeah.
like tiny.
I mean, I like the
It's out of
balance.
scale.
I like the balance of it the way it is, but I do understand what you're going for too. Like
Yeah.
I think it is pretty well balanced the way
Because
it
like in
is.
these little sketches, like
Yeah, it's more like a fairy house.
it's very like tiny. Can't see it myself.
Yeah, it's like an exaggerated rendering.
It's an exaggerated to really show how tall the pines can feel. This actually feels almost to scale.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
going
was
to
gonna say, I kind of like the idea of a smaller, because to me that gives a sense of whimsy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going for whimsy, smaller would be good.
And I'm going for the capturing the feeling, like the whimsy or the feeling that you do feel kind of dwarfed by the pines when you're underneath them. So, and I do need to, I think I'm going to play with this. This is too much lake. I need more sky.
Are you gonna like kind of just like narrow it down horizontally?
Yeah, I might change this down a little bit, bring
Yeah.
the mountains down a little bit, or the hills down a little bit lower, and then have more sky, so that I can play with some bands of, I don't know, yellows and oranges or something.
Yeah.
My trick is, I know we're not on color planning, is that these are brown and this is brown. And the pine needles are like coppery brown, and and so there's just a lot of like, I'm gonna have to figure out, and there may be some highlighting that needs to happen of the trees or something to set them off, like white or yellow highlighting. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's fine to kind of start to sort of transition into thoughts of color planning and
like I don't want the
materials.
tree, I want the trees to pop, and that's also why I don't want to lose too much of the background behind them, because they will help them pop, but I think they're going to need some sort of a glow or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I could capture the sunset glow on them.
Yeah, like behind them.
Edges or something that makes them shine. Like when you look at a tree with light behind it, you don't see the definition of the bark, you just kind of see the stick and you see the light behind it. So
right. Right. That's well, I mean, like those of us in Maine who either have camps or go to camp, like I can really feel that yeah, I think that's going to be awesome. I took a picture one time. I was in the hammock with looking up at those.
I've done that
trees.
before too.
I want to eventually do a design of that perspective because it's just really powerful.
It is. It makes you feel very small. And where ours is set up, there are a lot of trees around the building, but we have one little clearing area. Or when you do stand in the middle of that clearing, it's where we put like our fire pit. It goes up to just wide open sky, like a circle almost in the sky. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It is.
I don't know. Like the other part of this process that I think is really helpful from like a creative and mental health standpoint is when you start working with these images and what they mean to you and all of that, you start to feel a certain gratitude.
Yeah.
Which can be helpful these days.
Yeah. Well, in this one, I think for the first time, I'm doing the practice of having a word of the year, and my word is value, which I like because it's a noun and a verb. Like someone can have value or you can value something. So a lot of the ones I'm doing, the names of the pieces are a little bit, they are plays on that notion. So this one is maybe going to be place value.
Yeah.
Hey.
I'm working on a much more macabre one right now on my frame that's called family values, and it's anything but family values. So
yeah,
so I need something that's a little bit more like,
Well, I was gonna say sometimes you have to hook dark.
I'm hooking dark over there.
Yeah. There are some pieces in what I call my trauma series that are a little dark. So
it's not even, I'm done hooking. I'm playing with all sorts of things. That one's got wool pennies on it because I teach that class with Yvonne. So it's got wool pennies, happy wool pennies and sad wool pennies, if you can have that. And and I'm actually doing some like stitching of letters on a painted linen background, thanks to everybody who I've learned things from.
I love that.
I did some acrylic paint on the background because I realized that I was with the size that I'm making these pieces, which is 9 by 12, because I'm wrapping them around those little mini frames.
Yeah.
I could not punch. I mean, I could not hook letters. So I'm stitching the letters. And so I decided I would do it on the painted background. So we'll see.
That's a good idea.
It just sits there when I'm feeling like, meh, I work on it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see if I got this piece. How big is this piece? 4, 30. So I'm gonna go through putting this thing on. You don't have to pay attention if you've seen this before. It might be good review for anyone else who's watching the recording. Spotlight this. This is just how I get a piece, how I go about getting a pattern on the grain. And like I said, you can pay attention or not, it doesn't matter. It's just kind of part of the whole process. So this particular piece is 16 by 16. So I always add 8 so that I have 4 inches of frame allowance around it, which would give us what? 16 plus 8 is 24, right? This piece happens to be a little bit bigger than that, but I'll measure it in anyway. This is just a piece I had upstairs and I figured, well, this would be the perfect time to use this. So I use my quilting squares to measure in 4 inches by 4 inches to make my first dot. And so I'm going to do a dot at the 4 inch in, 4 inch in. That's going to give me a 4 inch frame allowance on each side, especially if this were a 24 by 24 piece. It's actually a little bit bigger. So I know my piece is 16 inches. I'm going to measure up 16 inches and make another dot. What I'm not going to do is use this straight edge to draw the line, because if I do that, I'm going to be off the grain. So I'm just going to draw. I'm going to put the tip of the Sharpie. It has to be really sharp. You get a dull Sharpie, this doesn't work very well. And I'm going to just pull it right along a single grain of the linen up to my second dot, which is marked at 16 inches. And I would have been like a 1/4 inch off if I had used the straight edge. So now I'm going to draw my next 16-inch dot. I'm going to remeasure this one just to make sure that I got it right. I'm going to draw my next one from the corner I just left. And I'm going to also just drag straight down the linen. Then from that corner, I'm going to make another 16-inch dot. And then I'm just going to close it up. And now I'm going to determine whether or not I can actually see this pattern, whether I can see it well enough through, or whether I have to run upstairs and get either red dot material or I can actually see it. So then what I do is I just pin my corners. Do I have my pins over there? No. I may have to run and get my pins. So that's how I do it. I don't know. Does everybody else do it approximately that way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny because I've seen people do this. They'll like draw a line and then or a dot, and then they'll just kind of like almost do a sketching motion, and then they'll draw another. Like they'll actually, or I've seen people do the sides and then connect the corners. And I just, for me personally, I think that's more work. But anyway, I'm gonna see if I have some pins handy. If not, I'm gonna have to run upstairs. I don't always pin it. Sometimes I'm brave and I don't do the pins, but I find that sometimes if I do that, I make a mess of it. I might be able to do it. Let's see. And then, of course, anywhere else in the piece that has straight lines, like my horizon line here happens to be straight in this piece. I also just use the grain of the linen as the guide. I do find that tracing on monk's cloth is harder.
Yes.
Like a lot harder. It also gets all over your hands more. Have you had that happen? Like for some reason, the monk's cloth wicks.
Yeah, and it just, I have a hard time seeing the path to follow too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I end up I kind of fudge it and I do as close as I can on monk's cloth, because then once I know I'm gonna, well, I've never hooked on monk's cloth. I punch on once. Once I start on it, then I know where my line is. So often my pattern will end up shifting because I can find the line when I'm punching, but it's harder to find.
You think monk's cloth is superior? I guess you'll probably talk about that tomorrow when you talk about alternative materials, but is monk's cloth superior for hooking like
So I actually did a whole YouTube video on this, and we can talk about it now because I usually when I do the alternative materials, I'm talking about, the hooking materials versus the foundations, right? So the first thing I want to say is that this is all private or personal, private opinion. It's like everybody's got a different opinion on this subject. I personally, for rug hooking, for traditional topside rug hooking technique, I think linen is the gold standard. That's like my personal opinion. And the reason for that, my reasoning behind my opinion, is that linen is, first of all, really bulletproof. It doesn't degrade. People, my students have heard me say this a bazillion times. You can go into archaeological sites that are 2,000 years old and pull out a piece of linen, and man, that linen is still in beautiful condition. It just doesn't degrade. So if I'm doing something that I really care deeply about, or if I'm doing a rug that's going on the floor and it's going to get a lot of wear and tear, I'm going to put that on linen. And I personally like unbleached linen better than bleached linen, even though you can see a little better through bleached linen, I think. Just because from an environmental standpoint, I feel like it's one more step of bleaching and chemicals that maybe isn't that great for the earth. And, it's also more expensive. So I feel like, okay, am I really going to buy this bleached linen just because it's white versus, natural? Now, I did a bee tote bag that I very much wanted the unhooked background to be white, and I used bleached linen for that. So linen is like my favorite. I like the way it tightens on a frame or hoop. I like that it doesn't move around. It doesn't stretch. It stays put. When you put it on and you tighten it up, it's going to stay tight, because I don't personally like working on foundation that's flexing on me. So my next favorite would be rug warp. I really like rug warp. I like the uniformity of the holes. I like that they're a nice size for hooking if you're not hooking real tiny. It is cotton, so I don't think it has the durability that linen would have over centuries, but I think it's perfectly fine for a lot of what we do. So I like rug warp. It's also a little cheaper than linen. So if I'm doing something like coasters or some kind of functional thing that I don't feel like really requires the toughness of linen, I will use rug warp. And sometimes my students like it because the holes are so uniform, right? They're very easy for beginners to see and use. Monk's cloth is my personal least favorite, and I never use it. And that is because for traditional rug cooking, I don't like that it kind of stretches around. It's very drapey. I like the firmness of warp and linen.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I know that many punchers prefer it.
For punching, I like it. I couldn't imagine hooking in it, I have to say. But for punching, I like it for punching because you make it tight as a drum, but it's also very forgiving. So when you have to pull something out, you just have to run your needle along the warp and stuff, and it just will come right back to itself. So, which linen doesn't do in the same way. So for punching, I like it. So yeah. And it works well with lots of different sizes of yarn, and but I have never tried it for hooking. I don't think I could. I would have a hard time imagining how to get the needle up through that stuff.
I think Laura Salome hooks exclusively with it because she likes it.
Yeah,
she loves it.
Yes.
It's soft. I mean, it's really nice to work with. It doesn't wear on my hands in a way like linen does.
Yeah. I mean, when you pull something out of linen and you have those holes left, if you just run your fingernails back and forth on
it kind of corrects it.
It will correct itself.
So it's the same then, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing that I think that monk's cloth can be really nice for is if you're making something that's a wearable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's soft and drapey and lighter.
Yeah.
And I think if you were making like a hooked vest or maybe something that you were gonna, or a soft bag, it could be really nice for that.
Yeah, I have something behind me I'm going to turn into a tote bag it's a monk's cloth punch that I'll sew to the backing, and then I'm going to make a liner and stuff. So yeah.
So, I mean, that's people have asked me that question so many times that I actually made a YouTube video on it with like examples. Like I actually had examples that I show of the different foundations, but I fully recognize that is preference on my part. Does anybody else have other preferences for foundation?
Learned to hook on monk's cloth, and I loved monk's cloth, and that's what I would have stayed with, except at a guild meeting you hear, oh, linen is better, linen is better, linen is better, and people kind of looking down on monk's cloth. And so I tried linen, and I like linen a lot better, and I never hook on monk's cloth anymore. I tried rug warp. I had done a course with Cindy Gay, and she talked about using rug warp and it's less expensive, and I hated it. I just if I had to hook on monk's cloth today, I could hook on monk's cloth and it wouldn't be that big a deal to me. I just prefer linen. Rug warp, I still have some. If anybody loves rug warp, I have some. I'm more than happy to.
Never used it.
I can't. Now, people who do, one of the guilds I've been in had Nancy Parcells do a class on her rickrack rugs. And something like that, my understanding is you have to use rug warp because it is so perfect with the grains to do, what I'm saying, with her rickrack rugs, you know what I'm talking about?
Very uniform. Yeah.
Right. That if you're doing something like that, that rug warp is the perfect thing. But I'm not doing a Nancy Parcells rickrack rug, so Because that to me would be one of those, I can't hook loosey-goosey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think if you're hooking like I'm doing these really loosey-goosey little landscapes, they're very loosey-goosey. I do think rug warp might be a little restrictive with those because it is very uniform. It's a
Has
grid.
no flexibility.
It's hard
kinda?
on your hands. It just,
Oh, really?
it was annoying to sew at the back to finish. It just,
It's
like-
heavier. It's a little heavier than
yeah,
linen generally, which I think also like when you're finishing, if you're mitering corners for like
right. It was bulky.
it's bulkier. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you guys have me looking around here furiously. I had this piece of linen that I bought once, very expensive, but it was very drapey and it was a background for rug hooking. And do you remember a long time ago, the lady who did the cape with the cranes on it? I don't know if any of you were around then. That would have been back in before 2000. Anyways, it was a gorgeous midi length cape, came down halfway down the calf. And she had hooked it all in a 3-cut.
Oh my God.
And it was done on this drapey linen. So somewhere in this place, I have a meter of that drapey linen, and I have no idea where it is.
Oh, I'd love to see that if you find
Yeah.
it. I wonder where she got it.
Well, I got it from Door.
Oh, you did get it from
Oh.
Doors. So it was different than the regular door linen, because that's what I use.
Right. That's what I
Stuff
use.
is stiff. This stuff is just almost like silk the way it handles, but it's a heavy.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
You think it was washed?
I don't think so. I think it was just the way it was woven.
That's interesting. I don't know if Door even carries that anymore. Do you think they do, Jean? I don't think so.
I have no idea. Probably not, because it was expensive when I bought it, and that was about 5-10 years ago, eh?
Because I think now they only have like they've got primitive, fine, and bleached and mixed. They have mixed linen, which actually I've used in like quite a bit. I've had to buy that when they've been, out of stock on my usual unbleached.
They redid their website.
Did they?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
They
go
make it a
look.
little bit easier to navigate the sections. Before it was just kind of like, here's your sample, and there's nothing else you could do. Now you can click through and see. So it's a little, they've revamped it.
I'll have to look at that because usually
Yeah.
I'm just like emailing Nancy at Door.
Right,
I need a
yeah.
bolt of this, a bolt of this, and a bolt
Yeah,
of
and
this.
I'm getting like little pieces of this and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah, no,
really
they
been on the
revamped, because
site.
I was searching for black. I needed black and they were out of it and out of it. And I kept checking like every day. And then I went on one day and I was like, oh, the website's different.
That's good because it
Yeah.
was kind
It's
of.
not dramatically different, like the basic structure is the same, but it's the pictures are better. The layout's a little bit easier to navigate.
Yeah. 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 So JC, if you really want to get rid of that rug warp, I just put the topic up in the community for people who want to like buy, sell, barter or something. And,
Okay.
yeah, like you could maybe put it up and see if anybody, I mean, you could sell it or whatever you want to do.
Right.
With it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'll have to measure it and do that. Because the only other thing that I was thinking is we have a store in Lancaster here that is it's like a arts and crafts thrift shop.
Mhm. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things there. And that you can, drop things off, and it's
That's nice.
it's like Goodwill.
Only for craft stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'd love to have something like that. I can't even imagine how great that would be.
Okay, I'm giving up for that for now. Okay, this is what I've got so far. I took the grass out and put in moss, which is what it actually grows in.
Hang on, I'm
Oh, that looks
spotlighting
fun.
you.
Great.
Oh, that looks
Oh.
beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I may have left too much around the edge. And I'm wondering, like too much in from here to here?
Mhm.
No.
No.
Yeah, I think it's good the way it is, actually. You mean you would tighten it down? I don't think so. I think your plants might be too close to the edge if you do that.
Okay. We'll give it a try and see what it looks like.
It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
It'll happen someday. I've already got 2 of Beth's projects from her classes I haven't finished.
Tell me about it.
She has a track record of not finishing projects that we do in these workshops.
Yeah.
But then again, so do I.
So do I.
Proud. Yeah.
I paint myself into a corner, right? You know, like I can tell you the corner in this one is going to be that tiny lettering.
Yeah.
That's going to be the corner. I have to figure out how I'm going to do that. It'll be yarn.
I was just going to say that. What if you use yarn, right?
That's going to have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to try to trace mine now. If anybody has any questions or topics you want to bring up, or you want to start talking about color. Now, color is something that honestly, I am a seat of the pants. What does it look like? Do I like it? Color planner.
Yeah.
I do pay attention to value, of course, because you have to, so that you don't, lose elements just against other elements or into background. So I do pay a lot of attention to value, and I do sometimes put my piece into black and white. If I'm having a little bit of trouble, I'll put it in grayscale and see if I can figure out exactly where, like pinpoint the problem a little better. But I'm not the kind of person who is inclined to get the color wheel out and start really technically analyzing my color planning. I don't know. How do the rest of you approach color?
I'm like you, seat of the pants. And hey, also, what do I have enough of? Because my pieces are fairly large, and there's like huge, as you can see from this one I'm doing now, huge chunks of one color, right? Like maybe the whole piece, except for a little line or something. So I need a lot.
I found it.
It looks like Jean found this linen. Hang on a second.
Look how drapey it is.
Oh yeah, it doesn't even look like linen.
That's weird.
That's like like what you would make. Huh.
I was gonna make a laptop case with it, but my laptop gave up the ghost. I might have to resize it and redo it now.
So, how big are the holes? Are the holes the average size, or are they?
Let me measure and see how many threads per inch we've got. It doesn't seem to be as regular as the normal door linen. Like I can see some thick and thin in here. So
I don't think they carry that anymore.
I'll wash that linen of mine. I'll let you know.
Yeah, I would actually
like, it's almost like the sizing's off of that, out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 threads per inch.
Oh, well, that's pretty standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think 13 is fine linen and 12 is primitive.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
So I guess it's like a fine.
So I'd be hooking a 3 if I hooked it, or a 4.
Probably. I guess. I don't often hook that fine myself, but
yeah, I don't follow that stuff. I just, again, I wing it.
I didn't know there were rules.
So the reason that you often hook finer on the fine linen that's 13 holes per square inch is because it's just harder to pull the thicker pieces through than it is with primitive linen, which is only one hole different. It's 12 holes per square inch, but it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm usually the smallest I personally am usually hooking is 4. But again, like piece to piece, like I never want to say never, because I I know artists like Ellen Marshall, a fantastic rug hooking artist. Pretty much almost every piece she hooks is in a size 8. And I almost never hook in a size 8. It's just too chunky for me most of the time.
Oh, and I'm 8, 8.5, and 9.
Is that your typical 8.5 and 9?
Yeah, my Bolivar cutter. That's my Bolivar cutter.
Wow.
That's awesome. So I
will hook smaller. I have a 6 actually also. And I will hook smaller for certain things, or I'll hand cut. And I use yarn too. So then, the yarn is whatever your yarn is.
Exactly.
But my wool strips are usually, 8.5, 9.
Yeah.
That's chunky. And so I think hooking chunky is an art in itself. So Ellen Marshall, she has 2 cats and dog hooking. You might look at some of her work.
Mm-hmm.
Her style is what I would call like whimsical folk art primitive. And it's not like, some primitive can look very cookie cutter, but hers doesn't. Her work is very distinct. And she gets levels of detail with an 8 cut that I think I would have to practice hard to get, but she's mastered it.
And one of the things I learned at a workshop this past summer with Therese Schick.
Yeah.
She does the patterns. If you know Jan and Fred Cole from Woolen Gardner.
Yeah.
Okay. So she does the patterns for Jan and Fred Cole.
Okay.
And now her patterns are a little, what I would call maybe pristine for me.
Yeah.
But our guild had her for a workshop, and she actually had an article in one of the rug hooking magazines on what she calls primalistic.
That's cool.
So it's like a combination of primitive and realistic. So she's adding in some shading.
Yeah.
And the one technique that she taught us is what she calls tail.
Okay.
And you pull up a tail, and then you pull up right next to it and snip it. So you have like 2 tails kind of side by side.
Yeah.
Like that they can make a line.
Oh.
Okay.
And it just helps to give some definition. So if you're hooking, but you're like, I would like this to be sharper, or it's just a tiny, I did her pattern for this workshop. I did a pattern of hers, and it's a mill, and I have leaves that are kind of in front of the mill. And I took and did that tail, and it makes like a shadow of the leaf. And it helped me with a value issue I was having. But it helps you to give just a little bit of definition to an otherwise wide cut. And you just keep pulling these tails, so you have 2, now you pull up again, and you get this line.
So are you hooking like horizontal, like next to each other? Like,
yeah, you pull up your tail.
Yeah.
So like, say this is, how do I explain
so
this?
Instead of lining up your loops like this, you're
they're like
hooking
side
next
by
to each
side,
other.
like, yes.
Huh.
And you just have
But it's
however
just the
long you
tail.
need, a series of these 2 tails, 2 tails, 2 tails, 2 tails, 2 tails to make a line.
Is it one continuous piece of wool? No, it can't be, obviously. If
No, because you have to snip.
So it's just like 2 little, it's just a little loop.
It's a tail and a tail.
A tail and a tail, and it's just
they're
underneath.
cut, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cut. So tomorrow, when we talk about, one of the techniques that we're going to talk about is tunneling, which is more like what I think Stacy's thinking of, where you actually turn the loops
sideways.
degrees.
Yeah. Okay.
And now the reason that it's called tunneling is because you could run a needle right through them, as opposed to side to side.
Yeah.
so that will also give you a certain amount of definition, because now you're creating this like tunneled line. But this is going to give you not only the change in direction, but it's going to actually, it's going to give you a little change in the texture on the top too, because it's flipped, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
And
really
it's been a really fine line, like really.
It
fine.
is. So like on my mill, I did a line at the corner of the building. So it made where my two facades of the building come together real sharp. And then I did like under the mill windows on the one side. So like you hooked the two facades in different values because the light was coming onto like, and mine, I made it the front of the mill. So there would be shadows under the windows. So I did a thin line under each of the little windows.
Yeah, I like that.
And it just gives a little bit of definition that you don't normally have when you're using a wide cut like that.
Yeah.
But without doing something that would put me into a straitjacket, which is like hooking with a 3 or a 4 or some other silly little number.
Yeah.
So excuse me, the snips, it must be, so you bring up the tail and then you must have to bring it up on the other side and then cut it.
Yeah.
And then you start again, right?
It's a little U kind of almost.
Right. Yeah. So like if you have to pull it out,
it's just a bunch
you end up with all these tiny little pieces of wool that go into my basket for stuffing.
Right, because they're literally like snips if you have to pull them out.
Right.
Yeah,
and I use a tweezer. If I pull them out, I use a tweezer because it's a little.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a technique I haven't seen before. I mean, if you want to show that, like tomorrow when we all have our, our stuff out and we're doing alternative techniques, if you want to demonstrate that one for everybody else, that'd be great.
Okay.
That is a great tip because I never shadow anything because it's like I use such chunky wool or yarn, whatever. And to put like a little line of a shadow, it's always too harsh. Whereas just something like that is so subtle, isn't it? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like the tunneling will give you that subtlety too, because you're just turning the loop on its side, which helps, but this is going to be even thinner than a turned loop.
Yeah, I'll run up and get I turn my mill into a pillow, but it's just at the top of the steps and I can bring it. I don't know if it'll show up on the screen or not.
Okay.
All right, I traced my little house tinier.
All right, hang on, let me spot.
It's on the linen now, so I'm committed.
Oh yeah, that's great.
That I can see how that really achieves what you said you were going
for. Just a bigger, I'm going to give more lake, I think. I'm going to work that out. I'm not going to let those lines be rigid in the background. I'm going to feel it out as I go, I think.
For sure. That's great. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it makes it.
I don't know, you guys, we've been talking about ways to put things onto our linen or backing. I often like that beautiful little house, I'd trace it on a kind of like in my sketchbook kind of paper on thinner, and then I use the weight of my sketchbook paper and I trace it right onto the piece, right?
Yeah, I've got the drawing.
You got your thing going on. Yeah, you got that going on. Right.
Yeah, I had a little light box going a second ago because
because often I just do that. It's easy.
Yeah.
Pop out, but it works.
Yeah, I'm in the midst of tracing, and the only part about it that's even hard to see through enough for is the wings. So I just keep I keep peeking. Did you find it, JC?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So this line
Oh wow.
is that tail. And then under the bottom of the windows. And then I also used it to outline my door.
Yep.
Just to give a little bit more definition and interest.
Yep.
And I also wanted to tie in that orange again. Now, Therese goes wild. Like, she did it all around the wheel. She does a lot more with it.
Huh.
But that to me got almost just too perfect.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it gives, otherwise,
Is it on the
you would
roof
still
line
see
too?
the two facades, but it just gives a little bit of definition.
Yep. I would have thought of like having to have the smallest cut piece of all to put in there. Or I would have done like a thin yarn instead.
Right, but this is easier than doing a thin
Yeah.
yarn. To me.
Yeah, no, that's.
Well, that is beautiful. You have to show us more about that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a neat technique. So as you're working on your designs and getting them finished, be thinking about not only color, which is what we're talking about, but also texture, because we're going to talk about all kinds of ways to bring texture into the piece. Because, like with traditional rug hooking, everything's flat, more or less. Unless you're doing like DM style hooking, which is its own form of bringing texture in. But for these pieces, you might want to have more texture, just to play with some of these alternative techniques that we're going to work with.
The problem with me is I think of embroidery as opposed to rug hooking and including the two. And when I think of it, I think that's an awful lot of work to put into a piece.
It is. It depends though. Like some of the techniques are no more work than hooking, right? Like you've taken that workshop. Some of them are just, it depends on the material you're using, or you're pulling up several things together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm thinking the moss underneath those needs to have French knots or colonial knots.
Yeah. Or I actually did moss on that big landscape of mine by taking a wool strip and a yarn that were like a very close shade of moss green to one another, and pulling them up randomly together.
Oh, really?
And I think they look pretty mossy. That piece is right behind me in the hallway. Let me go grab it. So it's actually maybe a little bit more like lichen, and I don't know if this is the look we're going for or not. It might not be.
Let's see.
So let's see, where is it? It's always hard to show things on a Zoom camera. I don't know if you can even see it, but it's like wool strip and yarn. It's not showing up really great on the camera.
Hold it up.
Pull them through together.
Under your hand. You can see it better when there's higher contrast with the colors. Yeah. That'll work.
I see.
Yeah. So that works. It would be less work than the French knots.
Oh yeah.
This piece has a lot of French knots on it, but it doesn't have as many French knots as I thought it was going to have on it. This kind of got burned out on the French knots, I guess I could go back. It's not the kind of thing that you can't go back to and add more. But
I might get kicked out of this class too.
Why?
Because I have just discovered a whole new thing. So I'm just going to show you if you can see.
Okay,
So this is just filler, but right there is can you tell? Can you see it? Anyway, there's the weaving right there.
That is
Color's terrible.
cool.
But anyway, there's the weaving, and then that's terrible light. I tried and it works. I'm gonna hook a little tree. I'm probably gonna do it this way now, but who needs to hook all that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, exactly.
Right where my background's done, and this, you can't tell, this is a terrible thing. I'll take photos tomorrow, but the texture, this is actually silk chiffon, and
Yeah.
man, it is gorgeous. It is just gorgeous. So it's got a nice little sheen, and yeah, I'm
Well, that's
excited,
great.
like, holy.
Nancy, this is what I did in her last class.
Oh,
here,
wow.
Not a lot of hooking on that.
hang
But,
on, let me
Hey, you're
start
right. Stitching, that's beautiful.
It's stitching and applique mostly.
Oh my
That is
gosh.
gorgeous. So there you go. Okay, so it's a hybrid class.
It is.
I was gonna say inbred, but it's not inbred.
Once we start going over those alternative techniques, you're gonna see that you certainly don't have to hook your whole piece.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah. And it's a lot, it gives you a lot more textures and more depth to the piece, and it becomes more
Yeah.
tactile, I think, you
No,
know.
I'm just so excited about this, especially since I invested in that great big loom like this. So it'll work out. I'll just have to buy yardage for sure and rip it to make it work
Yeah.
financially.
Now, I think, oh, well, we'll talk tomorrow about it.
No, go ahead.
I'm getting sidetracked on the other piece. I'm looking at it. Those windows that's where I stopped, eh? Because I wanted to do the windows.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do them. But I was thinking I might try painting them.
Oh, yeah.
But in
Hey,
order to paint them, you're supposed to take the hooking out first and then hook around them after they're painted, right? Or around the edges after it's painted.
I mean, I don't do, can you hold that piece up again?
oh, that's so nice.
That is beautiful. I love the sky in that.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think I would try to carefully paint it. I know
I
that,
wouldn't take it out. Yeah.
yeah. I know that
No, it's
ideally it
great.
would be easier if you took it out, but
You could put.
It's so
plastic
nice.
stuff
I
on
love,
it.
and it's got a texture. It's got a beautiful texture. Yeah.
Felted, the house, the siding of the house.
The house is applique wool flannel. It's just door wool natural.
Yep.
yeah.
Applique down.
Wow.
And then the roof line is hooked. The porch is hooked. The shutters are hooked. And there's a little bit of hooking behind the blueberry leaves. And I've got the base to the blueberries there.
Ah,
And it's applique leaves over here.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like there's a little bit of stitching on them too. So
that is beautiful.
Yeah,
Just
so
gorgeous.
that's just an example. That's a great example, actually,
Yeah.
of what we're going to get into tomorrow. Because you can either hook most of your piece and then use these things that we're going to talk about tomorrow as like embellishments, or you can really go full on like Jean did with that piece and do most of it in things that aren't the traditional loop.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and this is actually Stacy. So when we go on Get Hooked at Sea in August,
Yeah.
we're going to learn more.
I'm going to be so confused.
Only in that case, we're going to learn with punching and alternative punching techniques thrown in, which I can't teach because I'm not a puncher, so I can't.
I'll have finished my certification by then, hopefully. So
Yeah.
it'll be. Whew.
Yeah, so it's going to be, so our trip this August, we have Rebecca Martin of Storyteller Wool, and she takes this to a whole other level because she does all of these things, and then she combines the punch equivalent with traditional hooking in one piece.
There's just a lovely three-dimensional quality to her work that she's
Yes.
really mastered.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's, people ask me what I love about rug hooking, and this is one of the things that I love about rug hooking is that if you can think of it and figure out a way to make it work, there's not really a rule book. You know, it's however it's going to work for you and whatever technique and appearance you want.
Have you ever heard of stump work?
What is it?
Stump work?
No.
It's three-dimensional embroidery formed around a wire armature. Yeah.
Armature.
Armature, thank you. You knew what I meant.
I did.
But normally it's done with very fine embroidery floss, and it's very fine. And I'm thinking if I used a heavier wire and maybe a wool yarn or something a little heavier, I might be able to get something that looks like a pansy out of it.
I bet you could. Yeah. I mean,
I just hang out with the ideas, and then it's follow through is a problem.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the thing, and this is why, I get very upset with the more traditional guilds that will kick people out if they're thinking this way.
Kick out, but kind of squeeze you out, like
that they
the
kind of
jury
just
shows. No, you can't be submitting anything for this exhibition because come on.
Yeah, they kind of just nudge you out the door.
Yeah, well put.
And what happens is people get discouraged, and because generally the answer is, like, if a student asks, or if you're in a hooking group and you ask, well, gee, I wonder if I could do this, 99% of the time the answer is going to be, yeah, why not?
Yeah, right. Well, in a group like this, exactly.
Yeah. So
I don't know why they didn't like my aluminum screening in 28 gauge wire.
Right? What's up with that? Right?
I don't know. Nancy, I have to tell you, I was giving a class at the library once, and a guy who was a professor, an art professor from the University of Regina, was there. And I was waxing eloquently about all the different materials you could use for rug hooking, because there was a lady there complaining that wool was expensive and all the rest of it. And I said, look, all you need is an even grid background. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you need something that fits through the holes in that background. I mean,
Yeah.
and I said this, I said, if you wanted to, you could hook garden hose through safety fence. Well, this guy just burst out laughing. He thought that was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. And I said,
Stupidest or most interesting? Come
make
on.
a great billboard.
Who is it, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know, it was some guy, tall guy.
Because Rick used to
Guy.
teach there. He probably knows them. I might know him too. That's interesting though. But yeah, it's fantastic. Like it's just why not? You're right. Garden hose through whatever. Yeah.
So here's a great example of that, right? Has anyone here seen Karen Miller's yarn on mesh?
Yeah.
On Tool.
Yeah, on Tool.
Yeah.
She hooked
Yeah.
on Tool. Let me see if I can find a picture of that.
I was really impressed.
I
with
saw
that.
something on Instagram where somebody did a mesh waste paper basket
Yes.
and
Yeah.
hooked
Yeah.
it.
Someone's
did-
teaching that now.
There's someone,
Oh,
it's someone in
really?
Canada. Yeah.
I don't know.
Winnie, right?
It's not Winnie Glavine, is it? No, it's
I
It's
can't.
Winnie, I think. Winnie Glavine?
It
that
is Winnie. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for Karen's.
So you can hook on anything like that, and you can hook with anything, like Jean said, anything.
Oh, here we go. I'm finding the picture. I just love what she did with this. Now I have to go back and find Zoom.
I have to show you something.
I used to do like terrible environmentally, but I bought all that plastic, plastic film they used to make wedding flowers or pom-poms on cars. And I wove that through metal mesh, like pretty thick all around, and tied some pom-poms on, did all kinds of stuff. But it was fun to work with. Hard on the hands, but you know.
So I'm gonna just share this real quick. There's Karen's, can you see that?
Yeah.
So that's all on Tool. And what I think is so cool about it was she also had the presence of mind to mount this in a window frame, and it actually is casting shadows on the backing behind it.
You know, that is beautiful. And I love, like, there again, you're letting your background be part of the piece, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let me just... Oh, it's telling me that my Wi-Fi is unprotected. There we go.
Well, Tool's one of my favorite things, and that was another thing I was happy about today, was I discovered 2 rolls of it that are unadulterated with wool. So I was gonna weave those into this, but I'm not quite ready to go there with something quite so acrylic. You know, I really do have with rug hooking, somehow I just feel that affinity to natural.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I mean,
I love this. This weaves up beautifully, big fluffy blah blah, but
yeah.
I'm quite ready for that. I've never woven anything like this silk, and wow, it is, the texture is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Oh my God. Well, it's chiffon too. I guess that helps, but
It'll be interesting to see how it hooks, like how it holds the loops.
yeah, good
The
point.
parts that you do hook. Like
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting to see whether the loops totally cover the background the way they do in linen, or whether you do end up with like maybe just a little bit of that pink peeking through your loops, which could also be really interesting.
Yeah, I think that the little piece I did, it does happen. So I was thinking I'd try and cut up something downstairs. I just washed a bunch of old clothes that I'm going to use to cut up, but yeah, something fluffier would cover it, like wool, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Beth, you're a real trooper to commit all this time to facilitating this group, leading this, planning it, leading it, all of that.
Well, I think it's a really valuable thing to take a process slowly, and I mean, it's good for me too, because I get very off. You know, you get working during the day, and then an email comes in and you feel like, oh, I have to deal with that. And
yes.
So, you know.
Oh, sorry. I'm just sitting here with piles of wool around me, like going, You guys with all these different ideas, I'm like, maybe I'm not going to hook the entire piece. Now I'm like, maybe I'm going to make a little tiny cabin and I'm going to sew it on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You could.
And I'm going to stuff it. So it kind of stuffs, you know.
Hey.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk
about
I
saw that in there when I was reading through. I'm like, why didn't I think of that on this one other piece I've got? I stitched the wool pennies right on and they're kind of flat. So I had to taper the rug loops like around them. And I'm like, why didn't I think about stuffing them? But I'm not taking it apart.
That's how I first started stuffing, using stuffed applique is when I didn't want the applique to recede flat into the loops.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I've got going on over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really, and then the other nice thing about the applique that's kind of raised like that is then if you want to do an embellishing stitch on the top, it's a little easier because you got something to work with.
Yeah.
It's not flat on the linen.
Well, I may find myself tonight. Well, I don't have time tonight. I almost am imagining I'm going to make a little cabin pillow because I want to like sew the windows on, and I want to,
Yeah. I mean, Jean's right. These techniques do create a little more work. But I think the impact at the end can be pretty neat.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, like, I know what I've had in my mind in the idea of hooking the milkweed pods is I have some it's a nice long staple. This is going to be my milkweed seeds.
I'm going to spotlight you so we can see that fiber better. Oh, yeah.
Doesn't it look like a little, no, I don't have it. I need something.
Oh, yeah,
dark.
it does. That fluffy.
It totally
does. Right. I just tore off a little bit of it, a little piece.
Oh yeah. And
it's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty nice long staple length when you pull it. But now I'm thinking, well, what about the seed head on the end of this?
Yes.
Oh, just
because I thought that would be a loop, but maybe not.
Yeah, I was just thinking it could be like a little French knot that maybe tacks down just into like,
right.
It feels almost like, you know how the seed heads are, some of them are just ever so slightly obscured by the fluff.
Yeah.
And you could have some that are like, not obscured by the fluff, and others that you kind of just pull the fluff over a little bit so that they look like they do in real life. They're kind of embedded in there a little bit. It's possible that there's some needle felting that could be introduced there.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do with this is get out one of my needles and because otherwise, I mean, I've hooked with stuff like this before, but I want it to I want it to look like the fluffiness.
Yeah.
So
and I don't think you'll get that fluffiness with loops.
No.
I mean, you can hook with roving, of course, but I don't think you'll get the same effect.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to get out some felting needles.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll work really well.
So I think I'm going to go upstairs and bring my leftover wool scraps down here and see where I'm going with this.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a huge tub of all kinds of things that I might bring some of those, some of the alternative materials, beads, buttons, all that kind of stuff on Get Hooked at Sea too, in case they're useful in some of the projects.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Now, since we're kind of having a random discussion, this is probably like the equivalent of swearing, but you know what, I'm going to be using, I have a lot of sheets, right?
Yeah.
Cotton sheets. And I'm just even thinking about good old RIT dyes.
Yeah.
You can just throw the whole sheet in the washer.
Yeah.
Put your RIT dye in, dye it up, maybe mix a couple of colors, as you get into it. Is that just too cheesy for words? Are those colors awful, or why is that not a really common thing?
I feel like the RIT dyes aren't talked about in rug hooking because we're often talking about wool.
Oh, and you can't use that for wool.
And, you know, with wool, we need to use our acid dyes, or some kind of natural dye, or, you know, the commercial acid dyes. But I feel like if you're using bed sheets, which is another thing Laura Salome hooks with quite a lot, I don't know why you couldn't use those dyes.
And they're like, I was watching a thing, like Susan Feller and I were talking about this, like, you know, I work with her, right? And
yeah,
we're talking about that. And we were sending videos, YouTube videos back and forth. And, you know, you can just have a tub of warm water, put your dye in, put your cloth in, and it just sits there. And you don't have to warm it or boil it. And all of a sudden, the water's clear.
right.
I mean, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, but over time, right? And I have a utility sink in the basement. That would just be ideal. Put it in a tub in there.
Yeah.
Don't even need to use the washer because I don't want, kind of worried about that. But
right. I know some people do use those dyes in the washing machine. But yeah, you could. I don't see if it's bed sheets and that kind of fabric.
That would be bed sheets. But I've got tons and tons, and I'm thinking, I did a series of moons, like, you know, the moon phases.
Yeah.
And I used just the white, and man, it was really lovely. It's got a nice, I don't know, it was just really rich with the wool surrounding it. But I just thought it was beautiful. So
yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be like, talk about expenseness, like, you know, cheap. I hate to use that word. Inexpensive,
Yeah.
affordable, and accessible, instead of chasing around after stuff all the time.
I mean, I feel like, you know, there are people who, you know, RIT dyes are made to be fabric dyes. You've got people out there dyeing wool with Kool-Aid. You know, they're dyeing Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they're out there dyeing yarn and wool with Kool-Aid, and I personally would be concerned that it wouldn't be color fast, because Kool-Aid isn't really meant as a fabric dye. It's not sold as a fabric dye. It's not tested as a fabric dye.
Ask moms whose kids get it on their clothes. But also, doesn't it have a smell? Maybe it doesn't.
I don't know.
Kind of cherry smell or grape smell.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that I've been to like craft, you know, fairs and stuff where people are selling skeins of yarn dyed with Kool-Aid.
You can dye hair with it, I think. With Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
wow. That I would probably avoid, I think, you know, dyeing fabric with Kool-Aid, because I personally don't feel like we have enough evidence that it's color fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, kids use it in their hair because it washes out eventually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so it's kind of ideal for that, I guess, but.
Yeah. So.
Well, I've got a really beautiful quilting shop just like a block away. She's got everything in there, every kind of bead, every kind of broadcloth, quilting, anything. But she does have RIT dye in there. And
so if she's carrying that dye, she must have a certain amount of confidence that it's going to be, you know, appropriate.
I should ask her, because I mean, that's a very high-end store. So she wouldn't be, it's not like a dollar store where they've got that kind of stuff, right? I was just curious, but I might try that, because you know, every time I say I'm gonna start dyeing stuff, Rick's like, "You're not making a big. I don't want a big mess everywhere," you know. All that. Like, I said, I'll do it outside on a hot plate. No. But RIT, I could just trick him and just do it down there. He wouldn't even know it's happening, right?
You could do it in like even a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I could. That's right.
Yeah. Just
pour the boiling water with normal water, hose water in the backyard.
I mean, assuming that, and now this is the other thing, like, I don't know if a plastic bucket, maybe you do need to use like something like stainless.
I'll have to check.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd head off to Value Village, you know, our thrift store, and see what I could find in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm glad it's spring for more reasons than one, but be good to get outside to make a mess as well.
Well, if nothing else today, I'm getting my studio and my living room cleaned up, guys, just to let you know.
You're cleaning your studio? Oh, because you're looking for, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for wool.
You're digging. You're digging.
My
Yeah.
favorite colors were in a stack upstairs underneath 35 Parker's Cove rugs.
Oh,
So they're down here now too. Which is okay. Now, let me put it on the floor and see what I like as well.
Yeah, we were just talking about that at hooking last Saturday. We had our monthly hooking, and we were talking about throwing stuff on the floor
Yeah.
to evaluate it.
Wait, throwing stuff on the floor for what? I missed that.
To evaluate it. So, you know,
Oh.
you throw the pattern on the floor and then you start throwing fiber at it.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
That's
Just to
Anne
see.
Patrick's favorite way of photographing her work, to show everybody what she's made, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just to see like what's going to work and what's not.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
What do you think this is? Attached. Nylon. This is my bag of leftover nylon worms, or
Oh
leftover.
my goodness.
green.
Wait,
My
can we
green.
see that again?
Whoa.
Wow.
It's, I think it's a 2-gallon bag, maybe 3 gallon, bigger than a gallon.
Wow.
I'm
I
using these up.
I think you have some of the right colors in there.
Yeah. Here's yellow. I think. Gotta turn it around so you can see it better, Beth.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, let me spotlight.
It's
Oh,
actually yellow.
Okay. I thought that was like a green, like a light green.
That would be this. This is the lime green,
Oh, yeah.
which I think would be good in the Solomon seal. Because that's what it is here in the sun.
Yeah.
When the sun shines on it. But I don't know. It's not necessarily lime green everywhere. So we have to watch this. It's often, it goes into blue.
No.
Get older.
You mean the Solomon seal in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just nice pale, but a bit of that in there would be nice.
All right. I have to log off.
Okay.
I have a middle schooler done with track. I need to go pick him up.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think now we're just kind of like working anyway.
Yeah.
I
think I'm gonna
we're
make
miss too
my
much.
a little house.
Oh, look at that. Wait, hang on. Can you show
I'm
that?
like-
I know you have to go, but
I'm like cut out little pieces and I'm gonna see what I can do. And then we had an auction recently at our church where people like it's like called treasures and something anyway.
yeah.
Someone was giving away all their wool crewel that their mother had.
Oh my goodness.
So well, not giving it away. I spent $10 for 3 bags.
Ah,
And
That
I
is
put them in
giving
the
it away.
freezer. I put them in the freezer. It's the same thing. But yeah, so I have all this like wool crewel. So I might just sit here and play around with some little blanket stitches or something
Yeah.
yeah.
and see if I can make a little stuffed house.
I think that would be adorable.
And if
Lovely.
it doesn't work, then because I figure it's the one thing that's like man-made in this otherwise natural environment. So I feel like I want it to be sort of smooth and
Good thinking. That's a neat
different,
idea.
you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and
I
I
like
think it'll also kind of give it some of that whimsy that we were talking about earlier.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm picturing the rest, other than tree trunks probably having very straight hooked lines. I want the rest will probably be a little bit more landscape.
Yeah. Like flowy.
Yeah, I don't want too much mathy stuff going on.
Yeah, none of these designs are really mathy.
No.
You know, none of these are gonna require us to get out the tools and the math
I appreciated the way that you said it though, because that's how I approach it too. Things
or
like that.
calculate pi. You know, I have like, you know, when people are doing circles and they want to get real precise with them, there
Oh,
are
no.
there are equations for that.
Great. So I'll see you guys tomorrow then.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Bye.
All right, bye. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, I might go too. I've got
Yeah,
too
yeah.
many ideas now because I'm thinking in the future, as I weave, I could hook part, like I could pull the loops of my warp up higher too, right? I don't have
Yeah.
enough. I'm kind of, as the story of my life, do I have enough for this little piece? Like that's all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but in the future, I mean, this is just very, yeah, now I've got to go look, I'm gonna go look downstairs in my bags or cloth and clothing, what I can cut up for a tree.
Yeah. And, as we work each day, you don't have to stay until 4 o'clock. I mean, we're kind of at a natural point here where it seems like everybody has their design pretty nailed down. And it's just a matter of kind of thinking about, what are we going to do tomorrow with our materials? Make sure tomorrow you bring all the materials that you might have swirling in your mind for this project. Although, I mean, we're all at our homes. We can grab whatever we need to grab, but
That's true. But yeah, this is great. Thank you. Whoa, I'm just so inspired now. I'm really, it's probably not a lot, the way I'm doing it today, it's not much faster than really hooking, but it's an interesting approach for what I need to do right now, just to kind of, for my mental health, let's just say.
yeah, and I think it's a really neat approach. And if you're comfortable sharing it in the community, I think other people would love to see the way you're weaving that foundation.
I'll see how it turns out first.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right.
Who's left? Just JC and I?
Yeah, just you and
I'm
JC.
here. I covered my table with wool.
Awesome.
The way I tend to do. Now I keep having this idea of wanting like a dark navy background on a rug, but I have been looking for dark navy textured wool and have not found it. And Rebecca's her April mailer has a textured navy, but I didn't order it yet. So of course it does not exist here in my space. And the navies I have, I don't think I have enough. So yes, I'm on Rebecca's website to order my name.
I mean, if you know that that's the navy blue that you're going to want for it, you could work on the other element.
Right. And I pulled out some purples too as an alternative.
Yeah.
Which would work too, but.
Do you do your own, do you do any of your own dyeing?
I have. I don't have, I just do it in my kitchen.
Yeah.
So I'm always nervous about getting dyes, like getting dye where I don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, specifically like because of staining or because of health concerns? Staining. Yeah.
I mean, I have, like, I put down newspaper and I do really careful, and so it's something I've done. It's not something that I would say I love doing. Like, I know some people are super into it.
Yeah.
I can't say that's me.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to suggest, you might be able to dye your own navy blue. In terms of like keeping the dyes off of things, I recommend several things. Like, one is you can get one of those plastic tablecloths with the felt backing and just lay that out over any area where you think you're going to have, be mixing dye or whatever.
Right.
The other thing is you can take like a 9x13 or something bigger and do all your mixing inside of that, so that if it spills, it's going to spill into that. We've gotten pretty, when I say we, I mean Heather, my assistant, and I, we've gotten pretty good at being super neat about it. so that we don't get anything on the counter. But in the rare occasionally that I've gotten dye on the counter, they're granite countertops.
Right,
I've hit it really quickly with something called spray 9.
Okay.
And it has taken it immediately off.
Okay.
That's been a really good solvent for it.
Yeah, my countertops are granite.
Yeah.
And the thing, I don't have kids running around. I don't have pets running around. So from that perspective, it's just, okay, this is what I'm doing. Don't bother me, to my husband. And he's not really coming in the kitchen for anything.
Yeah.
So to be working at the stove or anything. But again, it's not something that I love doing.
Yeah.
I think I like the idea of it. It's one of those things that I like the idea more than the actual practice.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have that level of discernment, because if it isn't something you really love, I mean, I'm getting to a point in my life where if it's not something I really love and it's not something I have to do, I don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, if that's the way you feel about hand dyeing, then I wouldn't put any more effort into it than you already do, especially if you feel like you can source the wools that you want adequately.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I for years and years, I've been on Rebecca Herb's list for her swatches. Now I don't order as much wool anymore, so I'm no longer on the swatch list.
Yeah.
But she's local to me, and so they will they will show up at, like, they were just at a hook in. I wasn't here for it, but they were at a local guild hook in March.
Yeah.
But Jan and Fred Cole from Woolen Gardener aren't that far from here either.
Yeah.
So I have, plus one could argue that I actually do not need more wool.
Never. Never.
I have quite a bit of wool.
I know.
Because for years I always ordered at least 2 yards from Rebecca Herb every quarter.
Yeah. I know. And of course I keep a certain level of wool because I sell it. But I know that if I ever let the retail go completely, I'm still going to have mountains of wool around here. It's just, the thing is, what people don't understand when they say that, in all seriousness, is that, like the situation you're in now, you have a vision for what you want that navy blue to look like, and you don't have it in the studio.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think my issue with dyeing is I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Yeah. And I think my experience has been that, this didn't turn out quite what I was expecting, which is okay. It goes on the shelf and I'll end up using it. But like, to dye a navy that I would want with these wools, I don't think I could do that. Now, if I dyed more, I would get a lot better at it and I could do that.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to do that much more.
Right.
I don't think I want to get yes, I would like to be that good, but I don't think I'm interested in putting in the effort to be that good at it.
Yeah. I think that makes total sense. There are things that, that's like me with my knitting. So right now I'm knitting a temperature blanket, which is just knit. It's like this Zen thing I do before I go to bed every night. And I knit scarves. Like one year, my daughter-in-law wanted a pink scarf and I found a pretty pattern and I knitted her a scarf. But I am just not motivated to take my knitting much beyond that. And there's a part of me that loves the idea of, I would love to knit a sweater. And then I'm like, do I want to put in, am I feeling knitting enough to put in the kind of time and effort it would take for me to learn to do a sweater? And the answer is, like, probably not.
Okay.
So I feel like, I feel like that's a level of discernment that a lot of times we get as we get older. Like, doesn't it feel like when you're younger, you want to do all the things and you want to do them because you're supposed to do them or because other people say you should do them, and then you just realize that it's not really what you want to do. Now, if you loved, dyeing wool and you were like, oh, I love doing it, but you had all these other reasons, but the reason you're giving is the best reason for not doing it.
Yeah. Plus, I can have wool here from Rebecca in a day.
Exactly.
So
yeah. It's nice that she's so close. She's in Reading, right?
Yes, she's up in like West Reading, Tulpahawken area, which is just outside Reading.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll have to think overnight about my colors.
Yeah, and think about what you have to. Do you plan to do it all in wool, or do you plan to bring in some other materials like yarns or beads?
Well,
I know you've got the roving.
I have this, and if I pick the blues, I have a really pretty roving from Serafina Fiber Arts down in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blend, so it's got all these. It's blue, but it's got all these colors in it. It's real pretty. And I would mix that in and hook that with my blues. I don't know if I have the right yarns. Like I pulled this out if I use the purples, but this isn't quite, I don't think that works with the purples I have.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. Yeah, so I'm not sure yet.
Okay. And it doesn't, you don't have to use a ton of different things. In fact, in the case of your piece, I feel like that fluffy roving is going to be a real focal point.
Yeah, I feel like if I use this and I do something special for the seeds,
yeah, it may be enough.
That would kind of be enough. And I like to mix wools. So like when I talk about doing a blue background, I currently have 4 blues out here.
Yeah.
I've got 1, 2, 3 purples, which is subtle, but still gives, like, that could be enough.
Yeah, it could be. And
they're all textured wools. I'm a textured wool gal.
Right. So that creates interest right in there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay. I will see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye. Jean's disappeared there. She's hunting.
She's hunting.
Yeah, Beth knows exactly what I'm up to.
I've seen Jean's studio. It's amazing.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay, bye, JC.
See ya. So you're finding the things that you're looking for?
Yeah, it depends. I'm gonna have to clean up a bit more, pull out the embroidery floss and the narrow stuff and the beads and stuff. I know your classes, Beth.
You do.
I'm gonna have to pull out some more color coordinating stuff. It's turning out to be a green rug.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I can see that.
Yellow greens. And then I've got moss greens that are more browny. And then I've got blue greens. And then I've got kind of like forest greens, dark greens.
And the neat thing about that is in the context of a series. So this rug may be a green rug, and then another plant might create, like, it's almost possible. I don't know if this makes any sense at all. It's almost possible that you could have a series of almost monochromatic value studies for the different plants. Do you know what I mean?
Almost. The violet might be hard.
Yeah, but still, maybe. I don't know. It's just depends on-
Dandelion would work just fine, yellow through to green. That'll
Yeah.
work, just like this one is.
yeah,
The ferns would work. They're gonna be all greens on green.
yeah. But a violet, like what if you did like the purples and even made the background and the letter? I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Definitely the purple sky on the pumpkin didn't work, but maybe the purple sky. I gotta show you. You've seen this.
I saw that. I didn't think it was like, I feel like you're too harsh on that.
Oh, well,
That
I
piece.
got it turned down by every shop and gallery that I've taken it to, which I just take them all and it just after the first few that I try.
Yeah.
And poor person, lady at Traditions looked at me and said, "You've got to be kidding."
No, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I thought it was it was pattern of the month, eh?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, anyone could hook that any way they wanted. I chose to hook it.
I don't know why people think that's like so odd. I kind of like purple. Those are Halloween colors.
Well, I thought so. Purple, purple, black, orange.
And orange. Those are Halloween colors.
And I thought the green, though, I don't know. It's a sickly green, moss green, but it's kind of sickly. Anyways.
Yeah.
All right. So tomorrow at 11. Now, tomorrow I have the deck contractor coming at 2 or 2:30.
Okay.
I'm here until 2 or 2:30, and then I'll be
Okay.
gone probably for an hour.
Okay. So 2:30 your time, right? Atlantic time.
Yeah.
Because we're break. Isn't that the time we took the break today anyway?
I think it was just after.
Yeah.
So it'll be just after lunch I'll miss.
Okay.
I think you took the break from 1:30 to 2:30. No.
Yes. Yeah. 1:30 to 2:30 our time. So 2:30 to 3:30 your time.
No.
Oh,
right?
no. You're right. Yes. 12. Yeah. No.
You took the break from 12:30 to 1:30 your time, which was 1:30 to 2:30 our time.
That's right. It gets confusing.
It does. Anyways, I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
I'm already working on tomorrow's.
All right. Great.
So,
All right.
okay, you take care.
See ya.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.